In this video, we are going to talk about finding the area of triangles. So before we get into the actual formula, I want to talk about area of parallelograms first. So we had just talked about area of parallelograms in the last video, and that formula is A equals base times height. So here we're given the base, which is that 15 inches, and the height, which is that 8 inches. I'm going to find the area of that, 15 inches times 8 inches. So when we multiply that out, to find our area, we are going to get 120 inches squared. Remember, area is always squared. So when we get into area of triangles, it's actually really similar to the formula that we just used here for area of parallelograms. So if we were to take this parallelogram and draw a diagonal line from one corner to the other corner, we've now split that parallelogram in half. And what we've created now are two separate triangles. So here's one triangle that I'm coloring in, and then the same triangle on the other side. So we've taken this parallelogram and split it into two. So we've divided it by two, cut it into two pieces. So we can actually do that same thing to figure out what the area of a triangle would be. So if the whole area here was 120 inches squared for this entire parallelogram, if we were to split that in half, that would tell us that each triangle was 60 inches squared. So in order to find the area of a triangle, you actually take area equals base times height divided by 2. So just like what we did on the last slide, or we can write it as 1/2 of the base times the height. So either way, we're taking our base, multiplying it by our height like we've been doing for parallelograms, but then we have to take that product and divide it by 2 or cut it in half. But I want you to write this formula down in your notebook, as well as drawing a quick picture over here, this height and base. That's going to help us later on. And there's also 3 steps I want you to copy down as well. Our first step is to write the formula. Remember, the more you write that formula, the easier it's going to be for you to remember it. The second step is to plug in your values, and you're given these values. The third step is to answer it. So you're going to find the multiplication, do that quick division, and then label it. And remember, area is always squared. So we're going to go ahead and practice using that formula. And I know there's 2 ways to write the formula. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth with which formulas that I use. So here, I'm going to do area equals base times height divided by 2. So go ahead and make sure you're taking these notes in your notebook as we're going through them. Also, sketching the picture is something you need to be doing too. So draw this picture down and then copy down the notes as we go through it. So here, area equals the base is 3 centimeters multiplied by the height, which is 4 centimeters. And we're going to divide that by 2. So when we're doing this here, we're actually going to do that multiplication first. So we've got 12 over 2. So 12 divided by 2 gives us 6. Our label is centimeters. And remember, area is always squared. So here, it's 6 centimeters squared. Our second one here, I'm going to use the other formula. So area equals 1/2 times the base times the height. So I've got my 1/2. My base here is 14. My height is 22. So when I have this 1/2, I take 1/2 of the even number. Since both of them are even, it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to do 1/2 of 14. That's going to be 7 multiplied by 22. Remember, make sure that you're drawing this in your notebook and you're copying down the notes as we go through it. So we're going to do 7 multiplied by 22. When we do that, we get 154. Our label again here is yards, and area is always squared. So the next couple ones I'm actually going to have you try on your own. So you can use either formula that you want, base times height and then divide it by 2, or take 1/2 of one of your numbers and multiply it by the other. So either one is okay. Here we're going to find the area. So copy this down, choose an area formula that you want to use, and go ahead and try and find the area. Okay. So I'm going to do base times height divided by 2 for this one. So I've got my base is 30 centimeters times my height, which is 75. Divide that by 2. So it's going to be a larger number, but we are only talking about centimeters, so the actual length isn't that big. We've got the area equals 2,250 divided by 2. And this number isn't too bad to divide in half. So you get 1,125. So that could seem kind of odd, but again, centimeters is really small. And then remember, area is always squared. So it should be 1,125 centimeters squared. Another formula or another triangle here. Again, I'm going to have you try this on your own first, and then we will go through it together, but make sure you're drawing these pictures in your notebook. Pause the video if you have to, and then try the formula that you would like to use. Okay, so for this one, area equals, I'm going to use base times height divided by 2 again. That's one I'm more comfortable with, so I usually choose that one, but sometimes I kind of flip back and forth. So I've got my base is 5 centimeters multiplied by my height, which is 14. I'm dividing that by 2. So then I have to find the product of 5 and 14. Remember, here you are not going to have a calculator, so practicing doing that multiplication is going to be really beneficial. So here we get 70 over 2. So our area is 35 centimeters squared. Okay, we are going to go through one more example. So again, I want you to try to find the area of this triangle on your own first. Make sure you're picking one of the two formulas, area equals base times height divided by 2, or area equals 1/2 times base times height. So for this one, because I see that my base number is even, I'm going to do that 1/2 base times height. So I've got area equals 1/2 base times height. Taking 1/2 of an even number is way easier, so I don't want to have any decimals. So because my base is 20 meters, I'm going to pick this one, and then my height is 7. So I'm going to find half of 20, which is 10 times 7. So here my area is 70, and then label is meters squared. Remember, area is always squared. So the big thing that people end up forgetting for finding area of triangles is taking the base times the height, that product, and dividing it in half. So cutting it by 2. So make sure you're careful to remember that. It's very similar to the area formula for parallelograms. You just have to make sure you have that divide by 2 or cut in half part. So rewatch any part of this video if you feel like you need to. Make sure all of these notes are in your notebook.